Magento Creative, partnering with the client to help fulfill their strategic growth, serving the world as an Adobe Gold partner and BigCommerce Elite partner. Magento, the code of commerce. All right, welcome to this episode of Talk Commerce. Talk Commerce. I don't have a big budget to do a booming reverb yet, so that's my intro that I'm going to do. I have Muliadi Geo, and Muliadi, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and how you're involved in our wonderful Magento community.
Thank you, Brian. So yes, everybody, my name is Muliadi. I'm based in Jakarta, Indonesia. So I'm currently is the CTO of a company called Circlo, which is a company that provide an end-to-end e-commerce services in Indonesia. Before merging with Circlo, I actually own an agency called iCube. We merged with Circlo last year, and iCube has been a Magento solution partner for almost, I will say, 10 years. Yeah, long time. And we focus on Southeast Asia market, and even before that, I'm actually from US, and that's how I first know Magento. I'm part of an agency in US, and we are one of the early Magento enterprise partner, basically way back then, working together with Magento back in the Culver City office. So yeah,
Wow.
That's a quick history about us, about me.
Good. Yeah, I guess I'd not realized that you came out of Magento originally. That's very
No,
exciting.
I didn't work with Magento, but we work with some of the early, people in Magento. We are one of a few 2 or 3 company that were working as an early enterprise partner. Before that, Magento is just an open source.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. So one of my thoughts on what should I call this podcast, and I thought, oh, maybe I should call it Varian.
It
Anyways,
is.
yeah, it varies. Good. So I think our paths have gone quite remarkably the same since we started about 10 years ago as Wagento, and we were acquired also this year by another company.
Yeah.
And it's
Congratulations,
interesting.
by the way.
Yeah, thank you. The owner of our company it worked in Indonesia, so I'll have to introduce you to him.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, lots of parallels in our lives, including Meet Magento. But let's
Yes.
start off with just talking a little bit about Meet Magento. You put on Meet Magento Indonesia, and
Mm-hmm.
it traditionally has been one of the largest events that Meet Magento has done. And I know that it's not about the number of people, but it does represent the community that's in Indonesia for
Mm-hmm.
Magento. Can you tell us a little bit about that and your event?
Yeah. So it started. I try to remember what year, but I think we've been doing this for this year is the 7 years. I believe. I maybe lost count, but initially we just create like a very basic meetup. I still remember doing it with Magento. Just try to invite a couple of our clients and then just open up to public and see whether people are gonna respond to the Magento like event meetup basically. Surprisingly, we have about I believe it's like 100 people show up on that event. I have a speaker from Magento, and then from several of my technology partner in Indonesia from the payment and shipping. So there's about probably 6 or 7 speaker only that's that day, and we just surprised by the response. So we know that yeah, I think this might work. I think there's an interest on the community here. So that's, yeah, from that on, the next year I was basically requests with the Magento, at that point it's Magento Association, right? And then we formally request to be the host for Indonesia, which at that time there are no event Magento at all, and then they approve us to do that, and we formally kick off the first Meet Magento Indonesia. I still remember. Guido was there. I mean, was sent to Indonesia just to speak and to do welcoming, opening welcome. So it's great to have him there in Jakarta. And yeah, we have close to, I believe, 150 or close to 200, yeah, for that first event. So we were quite happy with the turnout, and a lot of. We have two tracks, so we have a technical track and we have a business track since the beginning. So we see both interest on both tracks quite strong, even from the first event that we have. Developers are flocking there, and then obviously the business trying to know about e-commerce, which is still quite new at that time in Indonesia, and it's kind of in early stage of e-commerce in our country. So yeah, I mean, and it's just rolling out from there, and just year after year, we're just having the event physically until last year. Obviously, because of the pandemic, we have to switch into an online version of the event. Yeah, it's probably about, I mean, 400-ish in the last couple of years as far as the audience go. So it's
Okay.
good turnout.
Yeah, and I had the pleasure of speaking at your event
Yes.
last year. It was great. I'm hoping to get there in person. I went to Meet Magento Singapore in 2019. That was such
Mhm.
a fun event. And a very long flight for me, even longer than India, I think. All like directly across the world. It's like 2 8-hour flights or something I had to take to get there, but it was well worth it. Singapore is such a great place. Extremely close for you. I think you're what, a couple hours from Singapore?
Yeah, just a couple hours from Singapore. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty soon.
And did you all, so we put on Meet Magento India. Have you've come to that one? I can't remember if
No, not yet, not yet. I haven't had a chance to fly there. I mean, I definitely want to go there.
Yeah, so we are planning, fingers crossed, we would like to do an in-person Meet Magento. We did an in-person Meet Magento in 2020. We got in
I
there
know.
just under the wire.
You're the last in-person Meet Magento that year.
I know. We still have the last in-person Meet Magento. It's a little bit sad almost. And
I know.
I remember you were planning Meet Magento Philippines at the time.
Yes, yes, we were talking about that, and then the pandemic obviously comes up, and yeah, we just have to change everything.
I think Southeast Asia is such an exciting market. It's a little bit similar to the LATAM market, in the sense that there's a lot of emerging countries and there's such diversity in culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's such a great potential in that market for e-commerce and for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the sense, just because you were planning the Philippines, that you're thinking more than just Indonesia when you're looking at your commerce footprint in the area.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we have clients across Southeast Asia, obviously, predominantly the majority still Indonesia is our main focus, because but even Indonesia market is so large. I think we are number 3 or number 4 population now in the world. I lost count on that one on the ranking, but but yeah, definitely the Southeast Asia is very ripe. I mean, from the changing on the technology and the how, because we are predominantly is young people, right? I mean, as a population in general in Southeast Asia, all the Southeast Asia country has more younger people than the older people, so they are more receptive on the technology changes, and that's kind of catapult a lot of the innovations, and they are much more open on trying out new things. That's why we kind of leapfrog a lot of things. Like we bypass desktop browser, we go straight to mobile in a lot of the country, and some of the people even doesn't have an email because they just go straight to the phone with the features phone. And obviously now the smartphone is so cheap, everybody have Android, and it's just very different. I mean, in terms of like the whole digital footprint in this region in general, and obviously those open up a lot of the e-commerce opportunity from not just from the e-commerce trading side of it, but the ecosystem itself, right? I mean, the shipping innovation, the payment innovation is just constantly. I mean, there's new stuff almost every month that we will see cropping up everywhere.
Yeah, I really like that analogy, especially where we're mobile first, and we were
Mm.
seeing that way. Like we've launched some websites in Bolivia, and if you think of Bolivia, you may think of something that's not quite as advanced as some other countries.
Mhm.
And I think you're right. People all have a smartphone, and they all have a phone number, and they
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to have an email anymore. So I think
Mhm.
that uh, um, one of the things that every commerce platform is going to have to look at, every single thing is going to have to look at, is you shouldn't require an email address to
Mhm.
register on your platform. You shouldn't think about what is the user going to look at on a wide screen. They're first going to look at their tiny little mobile device, and then hopefully they have a 5-inch phone or whatever the size is, that
Mhm. Mhm.
screen is going to be only this big. It's going to be 300 pixels wide or whatever that thing is. And
Yeah,
thinking about how that behavior is, it's completely different than the behavior of a user on a desktop.
it is, and also the bandwidth. I mean, now it's much better. Yeah, I mean, compared to 3 or 4 years ago, I think the mobile connection is getting better and better, which is the good sign. But I remember when Magento 2.0 come up, what is it, like 4 years ago already? Five, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember telling Ben,
They announced it was second quarter of 2012 that was going to be
20,
released.
wow, so it's already eight
That's sort
years
of a
ago.
joke. That was their announcement.
That was the announcement. Yes, that's right.
And every year Guido would, at that moment, would say, "Oh, here's
Say,
the tweet
it's
from
coming.
Magento that said that it's going to launch in this date."
But I mean, one of the thing with the new Magento 2.0 when they come up, right? I think everything's it's great, looks great, but then it's very JavaScript heavy, and the library of the JavaScript itself is like, if you do the bundle, it's like more than 2 MB or something like that. I remember ridiculously, right? But then I told to Ben, say, this is, I think it's a little bit not suitable for the market like Indonesia, where bandwidth's still struggling. I mean, for even loading a page that more than 2 MB is going to be challenging. I mean, it's going to take a while. I mean, not while in terms of like hours. No, I mean, it's still like a couple minutes is still, it's long in the e-commerce world, right? I mean, you compare to expectation of this loading 2 or 3 second or even 4 second. So I said, wow, and this is not going to work. I mean, we basically just try to find a way to chop down the JavaScript and stuff like that just to make it work. But that's true. I mean, the way that people expectation on the mobile, I mean, and because of the limitation that they have, I mean, we have to be really sensitive on, I mean, take consideration on that.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, Magento 2 did come out of that sort of 2012 year or time frame, which people weren't necessarily thinking about their browser first on their mobile device. The iPhone was only 4 years old or whatever, and
Hmm. Hmm.
people weren't necessarily thinking that way. And I think the other thing is that is Magento 2 is very over engineered, I think might be a kind word to say about it. Um, Maybe they try to pack as much as they can into something, which I think is great. And yesterday I had a very good conversation about Shopify with Mark Lewis.
Hmm.
We talked about guardrails and how some of the SaaS platforms put guardrails around their package where Magento lets you go wherever you want. And I use the example of, hey, Magento gives you, or Shopify lets you go into your front yard. Magento lets me go all the way to Indonesia and do business there.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so the the market for you, you've seen it grow
Hmm.
now, and we talked a little bit about Adobe Commerce and the Adobe Summit.
Hmm.
How do you see now Adobe Commerce fitting into your market?
Well, let's start talking about the market first. I think the market is definitely growing, but I think Indonesia market still in the very infancy in terms of like the maturity of the merchant itself, right? I think a lot of the merchant are obviously kind of like this is a big wake up call during I think this is a story everywhere, but in Indonesia especially true. A lot of the merchants kind of wake up on the pandemic situation. They try to be like, okay, how can I go online right away? I mean, the store is closing. They can't do physical store and stuff like that. So, but like I think like China and India, as you can see, marketplace play a big dominant power, right, in the e-commerce. I mean, in China, in India, as well as in Indonesia as well. So we have this big marketplace like Lazada, Tokopedia, Shopee. I mean, those are the kind of the big player that has been aggressively trying to get this merchant to. I mean, the first online selling experience that they have is not selling themselves as a website, but they just go straight to marketplace. I think that's just the first choice. So a lot of that influence and stuff like that's coming from the marketplace. But to us, we see that as opportunity because I mean, from us, the most important thing is the customer itself getting more comfortable into the online, right? I mean, before the pandemic, it's continue growing. I mean, it's a double-digit growing year after year in the last 5 or 6 years. But then during just the last year alone, the pandemic, then everybody just all of a sudden is like forced to use it. I mean, they have to start using the digital money in compared to using COD. So the e-wallet is blooming all of a sudden. I mean, within that year, we see growth just like tremendously growth. I mean, from the digital usage, I mean, on the e-commerce, which is good news because even though the marketplace growth, that's also a spill over to the brand.com, especially all the client that we work with that already prepare prior to the pandemic. I mean, they see just significantly push and get help a lot. I mean, with the changes on the e-commerce and and this is a good news for everybody. Basically, from us, it's a perfect time because then we can start teaching them about the brand.com, the website, why, and the platform now become more relevant and to kind of speech on. But at the same time, it's like I said, it's still a baby. So, and what I kind of worry is, I think Adobe Commerce now, I think getting higher and higher to the higher top level. I'm not sure. I mean, how's their strategy to the mid? I mean, I would say most of the merchant here, I would say, still consider small business if you compare to like in US or in any other part of the world. I mean, from the online sales even though they are probably have a very big offline presence, but then they're still minuscule on the online. We're talking about even if like 2%, 3%, or maybe 5% for some, that's still small considering the bigger picture you compare to US. So, but now with the Adobe Commerce going upscale, there's a lot of room that we have to fill in to cover all those market that we want to tap in.
Yeah, and I agree. And I've continually said that Adobe is pushing us up market, and they're not. They're saying they're backfilling that space by attending to the mid market, but I think you and I both know as agencies that they aren't actually giving anything new into the mid market. They're just trying to sell their upmarket product into the mid market, which is becoming more and more complex, which is removing a lot of mid-market users because not that the product itself to use is complex, but the
Mhm.
product to maintain is becoming more complex.
Agree.
And that is now, I think some of that complexity and cost is pushing out those mid-market users.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, because I mean, I mean, even when we start, I mean, because we are have to do business in Indonesia as agency, so I mean, we come clean with Magento. We can't just only selling enterprise just like you guys do, but we have to still cater on the open source market here in Indonesia because of that kind of sizing and the merchant that we want to serve with. But even with the open source, it's still, I mean, like you said, the maintenance and a lot of stuff, it's not economically sometimes, I mean, for this merchant.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that the strategy of maybe of having the open source product and having merchants go on to the open source product and then
Mhm.
migrate or grow into the Adobe Commerce product um, doesn't exactly work. It's almost like they need a lighter product that is
It
I don't
is.
know if it has to be less features, but it has to be less external things that you have to configure to make it work. So it would be
Mhm.
great to have, let's call it Magento version, like the Magento looking like
Magenta
number
light.
version. Yeah, light, but like Magento 1, where everything is self-contained and you just launch it and it goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I think adding in, I think it's great having live searches and add in Elasticache is now required, which is from a hosting standpoint, even adds more complexity.
Exactly. I mean, I enjoy your podcast with John, right? Last time you mentioned about like how the complexity having like maintaining Elastic server has to be there and stuff like that, right? That's exactly. I mean, we see a lot of the complaint from the community as well, like forcing that to be become a core that need to be happen. That's added a lot of costs from both, not just the hosting costs, but it's also the maintenance and making the site up. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, even so, Varnish is a front end,
Hmm.
but I guess there is a fallback on that. It would be
Yeah.
great if they would have a fallback for search that's internal. And I don't know if there's a module out there that replace. There must be a module out there that would, yeah,
there is, I guess
that
there's always
replaces.
the third party extension that allow you to use other search, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the open MySQL commands for getting search is terrible, but it does allow a merchant to get up and running online on a relatively inexpensive hosting package. And
Yep.
now we're moving into places where the hosting companies can't quite meet those low cost demands
Hmm. Hmm.
because of the need for some of these other external services.
Hmm. Hmm. And don't forget, you have to upgrade always constantly
Yeah.
with the quarterly patches and yearly upgrade. I mean, it's just like way different. I mean, compared to, like you said, 12 years ago with the Magento version ones, it's complete different product altogether.
Yeah, I like how they've at least released a patched version instead
Hmm.
of making you
Hmm.
go to the next version. I think that has helped quite a few merchants save some money on ROI by allowing patch only. It would be good. It would be, I think it would be really good to maybe have a little more transparency in their patches to say, here's here's the areas where you're going to potentially see issues with external plugins. For
Hmm.
example, the P1 patch for what 2.3.2 came out. I should know because I made a podcast, um, but they don't have any release notes, and they say it's security patches, but it would be at least good for merchants to have some confidence to say, I'm going to install this patch. I know it's a security patch. Here's the places I should at least look if I have a third party module that's a plugin that may stop working on a patch, because any patch you install, you don't really know if it affects something that you've had installed there. It may conflict with it. Who knows? So just at least some heads up on those would be great. And I know that as a developer, you should be able to do that, install it, and and see that through testing and things like
Testing,
that.
of
But
course. Yeah.
from a low cost standpoint, let's face it, a lot of merchants just install the patch and they go.
Yeah, and then some merchants just like let it go for 2 years, no touch, no patch, nothing, right? I mean, that's not in their back of the mind. I mean, scheduling or planning, having a budget to do that every year. Just so sometimes just merchant doesn't have that transparency that, oh yeah, that is the hidden cost that you just have to you have to aware, and you when you invest, right, on Magento.
Yeah, and I think the hidden costs on SaaS platforms are the plugins that you add and
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
volume that they charge per transaction, or how there's always a business model for a plugin for a SaaS platform. Nobody gives
mm-hmm.
away a plugin for free for
No, no.
Shopify. It is based on some cost, and as you get bigger, that cost grows, and there is definitely a convergence in which Magento makes a lot more sense, or Adobe Commerce, I should say, makes a
Yep.
lot more sense from a cost standpoint. Even the
Yeah.
Magento open source makes more sense than a lot of these SaaS platforms for a certain merchant.
I agree. I agree. I mean, definitely no one winner all at the platform game. I think you just have to know what tool for what purposes, right? I mean, I see a lot of this discussion between this and that. It's really not reflecting apple to apple, and a lot of the discussion. I mean, it's just basically when, as an agency, I think you agree with me. Like we always try to find the right tool for the right purposes, and when the situation really a basic e-commerce B2C, and you don't really need any customizations. You don't need, I mean, things like that. And yeah, I mean, just go ahead and go with the SaaS platform. It's easier. I mean, just less one headache. But then when you definitely require a business complexity and a lot of customization, stuff like that, and you start to monkey around that around the SaaS, that just doesn't make sense at a certain point. You have to own the platform and able to do that customizations into the platform directly. So
Yeah, exactly. And so, as an agency, you've made a decision to have more than just Magento as a platform that you're selling.
funny thing, we still committed to Magento only. I mean, we are a view of agency that only do one platform at this point. I think for a couple of reasons. I think one, Indonesia market in general is custom market. So there's no such thing like out of the box on the way that they do business here. I mean, things just change so fast. I mean, even from the simple things like payment and shipping, to be able to cater that with the SaaS solution, it's not that easy. I mean, I think that's why even in Shopify, it's not really able to do fast enough in a market like Indonesia. But like Singapore, which is much more mature, like US, definitely. I mean, Shopify has much more ground. But like a country like Malaysia, Thailand, which is much more complex. I mean, the platform. I mean, SaaS models. It's a little bit hard unless you the SaaS company really localized SaaS company where they are creating the SaaS only for that country. Then that makes sense.
Right.
So I
Okay.
think that's why from us, I mean, Magento is perfectly as the right tool. I mean, to tackle Indonesian market, and we've been doing that for the last 8 years. We at this point we built a lot of localized module and stuff like that just for Indonesia.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point and a great strong point, especially for Magento open source, since it's
Hmm.
completely free, that it can be localized for any market that you want.
Hmm.
And if a agency in that market commits to that, that whole localization is completely reusable. And I think one of the exciting things has always been on Magento is that people do open source projects and then they share all that with other people, which only helps that market. Um,
Hmm.
and I know, in Latin America, there's specific language packs for each country, even though each country speaks Spanish, or except for Brazil, but and Guyana, Belize. Anyways, just a couple countries that aren't Spanish speaking, but uh, there is a certain dialect, and I've had more arguments with Bolivians and Mexicans about Spanish than any other language different than you can imagine. But it does say that it's available and it's available to you, and it's actually not that difficult to create localizations and then
Hmm.
localizations on your shipping and payments. It's all perfectly possible. I think that's the strongest point on Magento itself.
Mhm. Exactly. So I mean, that's actually why we create the Meet Magento, right? To try to kind of like jump starting the ecosystem. When we start talking with the payment, we want them to also commit some developers to help us to create, and which is now nice. I mean, almost like all the payment, the major payment player in Indonesia have a Magento module available. I mean, compared to other country, like I was in Singapore and I start asking a lot of the banking, like, no, I don't have any module working for me and stuff like that, which is kind of funny. Knowing that Singapore is a mature market, so I think we glad that the community actually in Indonesia picking up and this play. I mean, all this local player, the payment technology partner and stuff like that, they chip in and make it available, and it's kind of nice to see that.
Yeah, that's very, it's not quite the same in well, let's just take Mexico for example. The challenge for us in Mexico has always been getting developers on board with Magento, and then listening to the complaints about how hard it is.
How it is. It's the
But
same. It's the same.
yeah, so trying to grow that market, and we do Meet Magento Mexico as one of our events that we do, and it's always been a struggle because the developer market is not as robust as, let's say, the German Magento developer market, or
Mm-hmm.
even in Indonesia or in India. The developers, there's probably a billion developers for Magento in India. So it's definitely a challenge. And I think the other challenge in some of those markets is the agencies will develop something like a payment gateway for a bank or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, and they don't make it open source. They try to hold some of that code close to them, thinking, oh, this is going to be worth quite a bit, and not knowing that making it open source actually helps build that overall Magento community in that country, and then grows the developer base because it's easier to get to those tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, all right, so let's use our remaining time to talk a little bit about the Magento Association
Mm-hmm.
and what it's done. And I guess it been 2 years now that it's been going, or
Yes, I think it's about 2 years. Yes.
yeah, and it's been up and down. I feel, quiet and noisy, and quiet and noisy.
I think they have a hard job. Definitely it's not easy, right? I mean, when the association has to. I remember when we have conversation like, why it's taking so long, and then they're basically they have to go through every legal things and stuff like that, right? I mean, when Adobe is a huge company, like we're making sure things align correctly and stuff like that, between what need to happen in the community and what need to happen between with the trademark ownership in Adobe side, right? Let me see. So I think they have the hardest job in that sense. I mean, can try to take care of all the legal and the copyright and what can be done, cannot be done in association, right? I think that's all the tough part. I mean, once you get into that space with the big enterprise company like Adobe. Um, but I think they are finally getting somewhere now. I think the last 1 year has been much better place. I think as association, things much clearer on what can be done, what not can be done. I think things already kind of more settled down that and more focusing on the how's the event and how can they support the community and stuff like that. They're back in track on that right now.
Yeah, no, I
But
agree 100.
obviously,
I
yeah,
agree.
but the pandemic unfortunately put everything on hold right now.
Yeah, and they do really have a very tough job. I 100% agree with that. I was involved in the very beginning, just I think before they even formed, just on some of those committees, and it was definitely a lot of round and round with everybody having an opinion.
Mhm.
And I know we want to be very inclusive, but obviously, the more you have, the more opinions you have, and the
Mhm.
more um, the more social points you get as you grow your central leadership team, which
Hmm.
then complicates trying to make a decision. And as there's more users inside of Adobe or of Magento, the Magento Association, more people involved in making those decisions, can't be as decisive. So I think that's the reality of the situation and how hard it is to grow. I'm 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 very encouraged by they've gotten some sponsors now, and they're they're putting on the Magento Connect event. I thought was very good right after Adobe
I
Summit.
agree.
So yeah,
Hmm.
all that I think
Completely.
it's very promising what's happening now inside of that.
Yeah, but the challenge I don't think is done yet, though. I mean, I think the balancing act between the community of Magento and now with the stance of Adobe Commerce becoming much more like a commercial product. How do you balance that? Are the association is more into the open source, or are they more promoting the commerce? So where's the balance point? I think this is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, the rumors are out there. Is will Magento Association take over the code for open source?
Open
And no, I
source.
don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to want to own that. So
I don't think that's the right place too. I mean, I don't.
no, definitely
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So you have a committee of people that are deciding on something. Yeah. Anyways, um, I think the challenge on that then too is countries that want to do a Meet Magento event. There's always been so much resistance, and when we tried to do our first Meet Magento event, it was I felt like it was always go big or don't do it. Like you had to commit the X amount of funds to this event. You should get this many people to it, or otherwise just do a meetup. That's what
Mhm.
I felt like the original conversation was around. And I don't know, maybe I didn't articulate myself very well to the original Magento Association, but I felt like there was some of the um, in trying to organize event and like I'll give you an example. We would like to have organized a Meet Magento event in Bolivia.
Mm, mm,
And so maybe we would get 50 people to the event, but is that better to have done the event in Bolivia and get 50 people than to not have done it ever and get no people?
mm,
I think
mm,
you have to start somewhere, and there
mm,
has to be, again, we talked about Magento, Meet Magento Accelerator or Meet Magento Lite or something.
mm,
Does it matter what you call it?
mhm,
I don't
mhm,
know.
mhm.
What's your opinion on that? Like, would it be okay for somebody to do and Meet Magento somewhere where you're not going to get a lot of people?
Um, to tell the truth, I mean, I'm not too hard on the actual name. We want to call it meetup, or you just call it Meet Magento. I think initially Meet Magento, the spirit is really doesn't care about the size, right? I mean, if I remember, I mean, how we start Meet Magento, I mean, initially, right? It's all about, it's actually meetup. I mean, that's how Meet Magento is. Like that's why I call Meet Magento. It's really just a meetup, right? I mean, I don't know until what time. I guess when the envy of other country having 1,000 people, and then all of a sudden we are competing in creating our own imagine. I will say,
Right.
which is kind of I think it's wrong, right? I think that's not the spirit of the Meet Magento. I think that the really when there's community, we want to create a place for that community to kind of grow. But obviously, I mean, you said I think the key factor is like if whoever wanted to meet Magento for me, I think it's the commitment, right? I mean, it's hard. I mean, a small number, large number, the commitment has to be quite dedicated in that, right? I mean, people will thinking, well, just open up a meetup and that's it. But it's not like that easy, right? You have to planning how to reach out and make the community come and stuff like that, right? There's a lot of homework that we need to do. But yeah, I would say if you ask me personally, I don't really see the numbers should be the criteria.
Yeah, and I think the difference in my perception, the difference would be A meetup is something that happens sort of ad hoc. You have a bunch of people show up. You have maybe some beer, some soda, depending where you live,
Exactly,
and some
exactly, exactly.
pizza, and people talk about a couple of things for an hour and they go home. A
Hmm.
Meet Magento event should be something where you have some scheduled speakers who have some really good topics. It's more than one. It's not just your own company that's trying to
Company.
sell something they're doing,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you don't focus it on one particular agency.
Yeah.
It is a community thing. You bring a whole bunch of people together,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah,
Exactly.
the community part of it, I think, is the important part. Building that
Yeah.
community, and I think part of it was that there was a little bit of a disconnect between the business side and the community side of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of like there hasn't been a Meet Magento in Africa, right?
I don't see
And
it. Yeah, I
and
think so.
so getting a Meet Magento in Africa should be a number one priority of the Magento Association. And I'll voice another complaint that I've had is, one of their requirements is to have a local person put on the event, which I think is great. But if there's nobody stepping up to do it and somebody else wants to do it, then it should be sort of like, okay, if nobody's going to do it, this person wants to do it, let's do it. Like, what's the worst case that could happen? You do a Meet Magento in Nairobi, right? Uh, and you end up having a Meet Magento event, and people come together and we talk about Magento. We get people from all over the world that come in and we talk about what's happening, and we introduce Magento to Africa, East Africa, and we keep going. So I don't know. That's I'm more of a let's lay some community groundwork. Let's get some grassroots going, and however we can get there, if the ultimate goal, if our outcome is growing the community, I don't think we
Mm,
should put roadblocks in front of that. I'm not saying that we should
yeah.
just do it no matter what. Like, we shouldn't say, oh, this Shopify place wants to do a Meet Magento event and then sell Shopify. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if there's somebody that wants to do a Meet Magento event and it's in a little market that doesn't have a Magento community, let's let them build a Magento community in that market.
Mm.
That's my soapbox. I'll get off of it now.
No problem. Noted. We'll pass along that to the association.
Yeah. So are you on the board right now? I can't
No, no,
remember.
I'm not. I'm just part of the what they call like what's that work? What do we call our event committee?
Event committee. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we give suggestion as far as like what who I mean if you want to register as the event host and stuff like that, we'll give input.
All right. So I'm talking to the right person. Yeah. So, all right. So I just joined the membership committee. So I don't know I think we have our first meeting coming up. So we'll see how that
Cool,
goes.
cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And I'm in a different organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a worldwide community. And I'm on our
Nice.
local membership community. So I know it's very tough to get members here for that because you have to pay. But anyways, and there is a EO Indonesia. So I'll introduce you to
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh,
Anyways,
yeah. Cool, cool. That's
yeah.
great.
So good. Well, we're at the end of our 30 minutes now. We're 45 minutes into our 30 minutes. Why don't you give us your shameless plug?
All right, I keep it simple. So, if you want to do business e-commerce in Indonesia, then definitely talk to us because we're not just only give you the technology, but I think the e-commerce is really need to be. You have to understand the market and stuff like that. There's things a lot beyond just the technology. So we're more than happy to help you to strategize how you're going to go into market in Indonesia.
And what's the best way to contact you?
Just by email at Muliadi, my first name, at circlo.com.
Great. And I will put those notes into our show notes as well
Thank you.
when the episode is launched. And I do have a website coming as well. So lots of exciting things happening on the Talk Commerce front. All right. So my shameless plug and my let's just say my community building efforts now, my energy going into the future, is we are planning an Adobe hackathon.
Oh, nice.
January of 2022 in Orlando, Florida.
Ooh, okay.
And I've started thinking, well, why don't we make it sort of a Meet Magento event as well? So I don't know. I want to keep the doors open to the possibilities right now. I've been talking to the hackathon people, the community engineering people at Magento, and they're on board. Florida is fully open. It has been, and we could do it today if we wanted to, but I feel like in January of 2022, we should be safe enough to do an event where people from across the world can come. That's our goal.
Yes.
And the exciting part is that that's where Disney World is. So
I know.
Yeah. So I can't understand why somebody hasn't done an event in Orlando yet, but that's my goal. Madeline, who is our event organizer, is spearheading that effort. So if you're interested or anybody's interested, we want to put on a hackathon at least, but my brain works quickly and not so efficiently. So I was thinking, why don't we could do some kind of mini event as well on top of a hackathon. Maybe we'll do a Thursday with the weekend for Disney World.
Exactly.
Yeah, good.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
thanks,
great.
Brett.
Well, yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks for taking my time here. And have a great evening.
You too. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Magento Creative, partnering with the client to help fulfill their strategic growth, serving the world as an Adobe Gold partner and BigCommerce Elite partner. Magento, the code of commerce.